The day my son stood in my living room and gave me 2 hours to pack up and leave, I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I just looked him in the eyes and said, "You'll regret this in exactly 2 weeks." He laughed. His wife laughed. They had no idea what I'd just set in motion. My name is Robert Mitchell. I'm 67 years old, and I built the house I'm standing in with my own 2 hands. Every nail, every beam, every window frame. It took me 3 years, working weekends and evenings after my shifts at the engineering firm. My wife, Margaret, picked out the kitchen tiles. My son, Daniel, learned to walk on these hardwood floors. But on October 13th, 2024, none of that seemed to matter to Daniel anymore. It was a Sunday morning. I was in my workshop in the garage, fixing an old chair that Margaret used to love. The chair had been her grandmother's, and I'd been meaning to restore it for years. Finally had the time, now that I was retired. I heard the doorbell ring. That was odd because Daniel had a key. He'd had one since he was 16. But when I opened the door, there he stood with his wife, Christine, both of them dressed like they were going to a business meeting. Daniel in a crisp navy suit, Christine in one of those designer outfits that probably cost more than my monthly pension. "Dad, we need to talk," Daniel said, walking past me without waiting for an invitation. Something in his tone made my stomach tighten. This wasn't a casual Sunday visit. Christine followed him in, her heels clicking on the floor like little hammers. She didn't even look at me, just walked straight to the living room and stood there with her arms crossed, looking at my furniture like it offended her. "What's this about, son?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Daniel turned to face me, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Cold calculation, like he was looking at a business problem, not his father. "Dad, Christine and I have been talking, a lot, and we've made a decision." He pulled out his phone, started reading from it like he was delivering a prepared speech. "You're 67 years old. You live alone in this big house. It's too much for you to maintain. The property taxes alone are bleeding you dry." "I manage just fine," I said. "Do you?" Christine spoke for the first time, her voice sharp. "Robert, let's be honest. This house is falling apart. The roof needs work. The plumbing is ancient. And you're out here in the suburbs, isolated with no one to check on you." "I have neighbors." "Who you barely talk to," Daniel interrupted. "Dad, we're worried about you, so we've found a solution." He tapped his phone and turned it toward me. On the screen was a listing for a senior living community. Sunset Gardens. It's a beautiful facility. 24-hour care, social activities, meals provided. You'd love it there. My blood ran cold. "You want to put me in a nursing home?" "It's not a nursing home," Christine said quickly. "It's independent living, very upscale. Lots of people your age there." "I'm not going anywhere," I said firmly. "This is my home." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Dad, here's the thing. The housing market is hot right now. This property could sell for $850,000 easy. We've already talked to a realtor. That money would more than cover your costs at Sunset Gardens for the rest of your life, with plenty left over." And there it was, the real reason. The money. Left over for who exactly? I asked, even though I already knew the answer. Christine's face flushed. "This isn't about money, Robert. This is about what's best for you. If it's my house and my decision, then the answer is no. I'm staying." Daniel stepped closer, and his voice dropped to something just above a whisper. Something dangerous. "Actually, Dad, it's not entirely your decision. Christine and I have been consulting with an elder care attorney. Given your age and the fact that you live alone, we could petition for conservatorship. Argue that you're not capable of making sound decisions about your own welfare. The room started spinning. My own son was threatening me. Threatening to declare me incompetent, to take away my rights. You wouldn't, I breathed. We don't want to, Christine said, and she actually sounded sympathetic now, which somehow made it worse. But Robert, we're thinking about your future. What happens if you fall and break a hip? What happens if you have a stroke out here alone? We'd never forgive ourselves. So you're doing this for my own good, I said bitterly. Yes, Daniel said. And Dad, there's one more thing. Christine and we're having financial difficulties. The condo we're renting downtown, the lease is up in 3 months. The landlord is raising the rent by $800 a month. We can't afford it. But if you move to Sunset Gardens, we could move in here. Temporarily. Just until we get back on our feet. And there it was. The whole truth, naked and ugly. They wanted my house, not for me, for them. How long have you been planning this? I asked quietly. Daniel had the decency to look away. A few months. And you didn't think to ask me? To discuss it with me like adults? We're discussing it now, Christine said. No, I said, my voice getting louder. You're giving me an ultimatum. There's a difference. Daniel pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket. Dad, we've already put the deposit down on Sunset Gardens. First month's rent. It's done. They're expecting you on Friday. Then undo it, I said, because I'm not going. Christine's sympathetic facade cracked. Robert, stop being selfish. Daniel is your son, your only child. Don't you want to help him? Help him? I laughed, and it sounded harsh even to my own ears. I've been helping him his whole life, paid for his college, bought him his first car, gave him $30,000 for his wedding. And this is how he repays me? By trying to steal my home? Steal? Daniel's voice rose. Dad, we're trying to take care of you. You're trying to take care of yourselves. We stood there, staring at each other, father and son. And I realized I barely recognized the man in front of me. When had he become this? When had my Daniel, my boy who used to help me in this very workshop, who I taught to use a level and measure twice before cutting, when had he become this cold, calculating stranger? Christine checked her watch. Robert, we need an answer. The movers are on standby. If you agree to go voluntarily, we'll help you pack. We'll make this as easy as possible. You have 2 hours to decide. 2 hours? I repeated. You're giving me 2 hours to leave the home I built? We're being generous, Daniel said. The conservatorship hearing could happen as soon as next week. This way, you keep your dignity. You leave on your own terms. Something inside me went very calm, very cold. I thought about Margaret, about how she died right here in this house, in our bedroom upstairs, with me holding her hand, how she'd made me promise to never let anyone take this house from us, how she'd said, "You built this with love, Robert. Don't ever forget that." I looked at my son, at the woman he'd married, and I made a decision. "Okay," I said quietly. Daniel blinked. "Okay? I'll leave, but not to Sunset Gardens. I'll find my own place, and I'll need more than 2 hours. I'll need 2 weeks. Dad. 2 weeks, I repeated firmly. That's reasonable. That gives me time to find an apartment, to sort through my things, to do this properly. Unless you're really planning to throw your elderly father out on the street with 2 hours' notice. Christine and Daniel exchanged glances. I could see them calculating. 2 weeks was better than a legal battle. 2 weeks meant they'd still get the house without the mess of conservatorship proceedings. "Fine," Daniel said finally. 2 weeks. But, Dad, after that, we're moving in, whether you're out or not." "I understand," I said, and I did. I understood perfectly. They left soon after, drove away in their BMW. Christine was probably already on the phone with her decorator, planning how to redo my home. I stood in my living room for a long time after they left, looking at the photos on the mantel, Margaret and me on our wedding day, Daniel as a baby, Daniel graduating college, all these memories, all these years. Then I walked to my study and pulled out my phone. There was a call I needed to make, a call that would change everything. "Marcus Webb Law Offices," the receptionist answered. "Hi, this is Robert Mitchell. I need to speak with Marcus urgently. Tell him it's about property rights and elder abuse." While I waited for Marcus to pick up, I looked out the window at the maple tree in my front yard. I'd planted that tree the day Daniel was born, 42 years ago. I'd watched it grow from a sapling to this massive, beautiful thing with roots that went deep into the earth. Some people don't understand that roots aren't just what hold you up. They're also what keep you grounded when storms come. And a storm was coming for Daniel and Christine. They just didn't know it yet. "Robert?" Marcus's voice came through the line. "What's going on?" "Marcus, I need your help, and I need you to move fast. I have exactly 2 weeks to teach my son a lesson he should have learned a long time ago." 3 days later, October 16th. I was sitting in Marcus Webb's downtown office, looking at a stack of legal documents that represented my entire life. Property deeds, tax records, bank statements, everything I owned, laid out on mahogany wood. Marcus was 55, silver-haired, sharp-eyed. We'd known each other for 30 years, ever since he'd helped me with the paperwork when I bought the land for my house. He'd handled Margaret's will when she died. He knew my family situation. He knew everything. "Robert," he said carefully, "before we proceed, I need to ask you something. Are you absolutely sure about this? Because once we start down this road, there's no going back." "I'm sure," I said. "Your son is going to be devastated." "My son tried to throw me out of my own home with 2 hours' notice. He threatened to have me declared incompetent. He's planning to steal my house." I looked Marcus in the eye. "Tell me, what would you do?" Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded. "I'd do exactly what you're about to do." He pulled out a fresh legal pad and clicked his pen. "Okay, let's talk strategy. Your son Daniel thinks he's got this all figured out. He thinks you're a lonely old man with nowhere to go and no options. He's counting on you being too scared or too confused to fight back." "He's wrong," I said. "He is. Because what Daniel doesn't understand, what Christine certainly doesn't understand, is that you're not just some helpless senior citizen. You're a retired civil engineer who worked for Morrison and Associates for 35 years. You've got a pension. You've got savings, you've got investments, and most importantly, you own your home free and clear." "The house is in my name only," I confirmed. "Margaret and I bought it together, but when she died, it transferred entirely to me." "Exactly, which means Daniel and Christine have zero legal claim to it. Zero. They can't force you out. The conservatorship threat? That's a bluff, a bad one. I've reviewed your medical records, with your permission, and there's nothing there that would support a claim of incompetence. You're in excellent mental health. You manage your own finances. You drive. You live independently. No judge would side with them. So what do we do? I asked. Marcus smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of a man who was about to win a chess game that his opponent didn't even know they were playing. We do something Daniel isn't expecting. We go on offense. He pulled out the first document. This is a restraining order. Technically, it's called an order of protection. You're going to file this against Daniel and Christine, citing harassment and attempted exploitation of an elder. The 2-hour ultimatum? That's evidence. The conservatorship threat? More evidence. When the judge reviews this, they're going to see a clear pattern of adult children trying to pressure a senior citizen into giving up his home. Will it work? I asked. Robert, I've been a lawyer for 28 years. I've handled dozens of elder abuse cases. What Daniel and Christine tried to do to you, it's textbook financial exploitation. The court takes this stuff very seriously. He pulled out another document. Second, we're going to file a formal complaint with Adult Protective Services. They'll open an investigation. And here's the beautiful part. Once that investigation is open, it creates a legal record. If Daniel and Christine try anything, and I mean anything, to force you out of your home, they're not just dealing with you anymore. They're dealing with the state. How long will all this take? I asked. The restraining order? We can get a temporary one issued as early as tomorrow. It'll prohibit Daniel and Christine from coming within 500 feet of your property. The full hearing will be in about 10 days. 10 days, I repeated. I told them 2 weeks. Exactly. You're staying inside your own timeline. Gives you the moral high ground. I thought about this. About Daniel showing up to move in and finding out he can't even come to the property. About Christine's face when she realizes her decorator won't be getting access to my home. But there was something else I needed. Something more permanent. Marcus, I said slowly, what if I don't just want to stop them? What if I want to make sure they never try this again? Marcus leaned back in his chair. What are you thinking? My will. Currently, Daniel is the sole beneficiary. Everything I own, the house, my savings, my pension survivor benefits, it all goes to him when I die. You want to change it. I want to remove him entirely. Marcus didn't look surprised. That's your right. The question is, who do you want it to go to instead? I'd been thinking about this since Sunday. There's a charity, Homes for Heroes. They build houses for disabled veterans. Margaret and I used to donate to them. So you want your estate to go to them? Most of it, but there's something else. I pulled out an old photograph from my wallet. It showed a young girl with bright eyes and a big smile. This is Sarah. She's 19 now, my niece, my sister's daughter. Sarah's in college, studying architecture. She wants to design homes for low-income families. Marcus nodded, understanding. You want to set up a trust for her education. And a down payment on her first house when she's ready. She reminds me of who Daniel used to be. Before Christine, before the greed. How much are we talking about? Marcus asked. I'd done the math. My estate is worth about $1.2 million total. The house, my savings, life insurance, pension benefits. I want $200,000 in trust for Sarah's education and future. The rest goes to Homes for Heroes. That leaves Daniel with nothing, Marcus said quietly. That leaves Daniel with exactly what he tried to give me. Nothing. There was a long silence. Then Marcus picked up his pen. I'll draft the new will today. We'll need 2 witnesses for the signing. I'll have my paralegal and secretary do it. The will becomes effective immediately upon execution. What if Daniel finds out? I asked. He won't. Not until after you die. Wills are private documents. He has no legal right to see it while you're alive. And the house? He thinks he's moving in 2 weeks. Marcus's smile got wider. Oh, Robert, that's the best part. See, here's what Daniel doesn't know. You don't have to sell him the house. You don't have to let him move in. He has no tenancy rights. He's not on the deed. He's not on any lease. When those 2 weeks are up and he shows up with moving trucks, you call the police and have him arrested for trespassing. The image formed in my mind. Daniel at my door, police cars in the driveway, the look on his face. But we can do better than that, Marcus continued, because I'm guessing Daniel has already started telling people he's moving into your house, right? Probably told his landlord he's not renewing his lease. I hadn't thought of that. Probably. Which means in 3 months, when his current lease expires, Daniel and Christine are going to be homeless. No house to move into, no apartment to go back to. And with a legal complaint for elder abuse on their record, good luck finding a landlord willing to rent to them. Is that ethical? I asked. Letting him make decisions based on something that's not going to happen? You told him 2 weeks. You gave him a timeline. What he does with that timeline is his choice. You're not obligated to warn him that his assumptions are wrong. I thought about Margaret, about what she would say if she were here. Part of me knew she'd tell me to forgive Daniel, to give him another chance. But another part, the part that remembered how she'd looked at me on her deathbed and made me promise to protect what we'd built. That part said this was right. Do it, I said. All of it. The restraining order, the APS complaint, the new will, everything. Marcus nodded and started gathering papers. I'll file the restraining order petition this afternoon. You should have the temporary order by tomorrow evening. Do not tell Daniel. Do not warn him. The order will be served by a sheriff's deputy. When? I asked. Probably Friday or Saturday. Right around the 1-week mark. Perfect, I said. As I stood to leave, Marcus put a hand on my shoulder. Robert, I've known you a long time. You're one of the kindest, most generous men I've ever met. The fact that it's come to this, I'm sorry. Don't be, I said. Daniel made his choices. Now he gets to live with them. I drove home slowly, taking the long way. Past the park where I used to take Daniel when he was little. Past his old elementary school. Past the ice cream shop where we'd celebrate every time he got a good report card. Somewhere along the way, I'd lost my son. Or maybe he'd lost himself. Either way, the man who'd stood in my living room on Sunday wasn't the boy I'd raised. He was a stranger who'd looked at his own father and seen nothing but a problem to be solved, an obstacle to be removed. When I got home, the house felt different, quieter, like it was holding its breath, waiting for what came next. I went to my workshop and picked up the chair I'd been restoring, Margaret's grandmother's chair. It needed a new coat of varnish, some reinforcement on the joints. Patient work, careful work, the kind of work you can't rush, the kind of work that, when done right, lasts for generations. I thought about the next 2 weeks, about the legal machinery Marcus was setting in motion, about the moment when Daniel would realize he'd miscalculated, badly. And I got to work. October 19th. 1 week mark. It was a Friday afternoon when the sheriff's deputy knocked on my door. I'd been expecting him. Marcus had called that morning to let me know the service would happen today. Robert Mitchell? The deputy asked. That's me. He handed me a copy of the restraining order. Sir, this is your copy. The respondents will be served within the hour. Do you understand what this order means? I do. Thank you, officer. After he left, I read through the document one more time. It was all there, laid out in cold legal language. Harassment, financial exploitation, attempted coercion of a senior citizen. The order prohibited Daniel and Christine from coming within 500 feet of my property or contacting me in any way except through an attorney. Violation of the order was a criminal offense. I wondered where Daniel was right now. At work, probably. His office was downtown, about 30 minutes away. The deputy would be showing up there soon. I imagined Daniel's face, his confusion turning to anger, then to panic as he realized what this meant. No access to the house, no moving in 1 week. Everything he'd planned, everything he'd counted on, suddenly ripped away. My phone started ringing about 2 hours later, Daniel's name on the screen. I didn't answer. The restraining order said no contact except through attorneys. I was following the rules. He called again and again. By evening, I had 17 missed calls from Daniel, 9 from Christine, and 3 from a number I didn't recognize. The voicemails were interesting. They went through stages. First call, Daniel's voice. "Dad, what the hell? I just got served with a restraining order. Call me, now." Third call. "Dad, this is insane. You can't do this. I'm your son." Seventh call. "You're making a huge mistake. Christine and I are trying to help you, and you're treating us like criminals." 13th call. Christine's voice. "Robert, I don't know who put these ideas in your head, but you need to stop this immediately. We're family. Family doesn't do this to each other." The irony of that last message wasn't lost on me. The number I didn't recognize turned out to be Daniel's lawyer. He'd hired one fast. The voicemail was professional, requesting that I contact him to discuss a resolution to this unfortunate misunderstanding. Misunderstanding. Right? I called Marcus instead. "They're trying to reach me. 17 calls." "Don't respond," Marcus said immediately. "Not to them, not to their lawyer. Not yet. Let them panic for the weekend. Let them really understand what they're dealing with. We'll respond to the attorney on Monday." "What are they going to do?" I asked. "Honestly, they're going to try to fight it. They'll claim the restraining order is baseless, that you're mentally unstable, that they were only trying to help. Standard playbook for these situations." "Will it work?" "Not a chance. We have documentation, the 2-hour ultimatum, the conservatorship threat, their own words condemning them. Plus, the Adult Protective Services investigator is already scheduled to interview you on Monday. Once she files her report, the judge will see a clear pattern." That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because I felt guilty, I didn't, but because I kept thinking about the full hearing, about having to face Daniel in court, about having to say out loud in front of a judge that my own son had tried to steal my home. How had it come to this? I got up around 2 a.m. and went to the kitchen, made myself some tea, sat at the table where Margaret and I used to have breakfast every morning for 40 years. There was a photo on the refrigerator. Daniel, age 8, holding up a fish he'd caught on our camping trip to Lake Superior. He was grinning so wide, so proud. I'd taught him how to bait the hook, how to cast, how to be patient and wait for the bite. When had patience turned into entitlement? When had I stopped being his father and started being his ATM? Maybe it was after Margaret died. She'd always been the one to rein him in when he got too demanding. I'd been too soft, too eager to make him happy after losing his mother. Maybe it was Christine. Daniel had changed after he met her. started talking about money more, about status, about what they deserved, started visiting less, started looking at his old childhood home like it was beneath him. Or maybe it was always there, buried deep, and I just didn't want to see it. My phone buzzed. A text message from a blocked number. I almost deleted it, but something made me open it. "Dad, please, just talk to me. We can fix this. I'm sorry for how I handled things, but you can't shut me out like this. I'm your son." I stared at that message for a long time. "I'm your son." Like that was a magic phrase that erased everything, like biology trumped betrayal. I thought about responding, thought about giving him one more chance. Then I remembered the look in his eyes when he'd given me that 2-hour deadline, the cold calculation, the way he'd threatened to have me declared incompetent, the way Christine had smiled when she talked about redecorating my home. Some people think you're weak if you forgive, but sometimes the stronger thing, the braver thing, is to say enough, is to draw a line and mean it. I deleted the message and turned off my phone. Let him panic. Let him sit with what he'd done. Let him realize that actions have consequences even when you're someone's son. Especially when you're someone's son. October 22nd, Monday morning. The Adult Protective Services investigator arrived at exactly 9 a.m. Her name was Patricia Chen, mid-40s, with kind eyes but a no-nonsense demeanor. She carried a tablet and a leather portfolio, and when I offered her coffee, she accepted with a warm smile. "Mr. Mitchell," she said, settling into my living room chair, "I'm here to follow up on the complaint filed regarding potential elder abuse and financial exploitation. Everything you tell me today is confidential, and I want you to know that my only concern is your well-being." "I understand," I said. She pulled out her tablet. "Let's start with the basics. Can you tell me about what happened on October 13th? I walked her through everything. The surprise visit, the 2-hour ultimatum, the Sunset Gardens deposit they'd made without my permission, the conservatorship threat, Christine's comment about how I was bleeding dry on property taxes that I'd been paying without issue for 42 years. Patricia took notes throughout, her expression neutral, but her eyes getting sharper with each detail. "Mr. Mitchell, do you have any documentation of these interactions?" "I have the Sunset Gardens paperwork they left behind, and there were text messages afterward." I showed her my phone. The 17 missed calls, the blocked number message. She photographed everything. "How long have you lived in this house?" she asked. "I built it 42 years ago. My wife, Margaret, and I designed it together. I did most of the construction myself." "And your son, Daniel, has he ever lived here?" "He grew up here, but he moved out when he was 23. That was 19 years ago." "Does he pay rent here? Does he have any legal claim to the property?" "None. The deed is in my name only. Always has been." Patricia made more notes. Then she looked up at me, and her professional mask slipped just slightly. "Mr. Mitchell, I've been doing this job for 12 years. I've seen a lot of cases of adult children trying to exploit their elderly parents. What your son attempted, the sudden ultimatum, the facility deposit without consent, the threat of conservatorship, these are classic red flags for financial exploitation." That's what my lawyer said. "Marcus Webb, correct? I've worked with him before. He's good." She stood up and walked around my living room, taking in the space. The photos on the mantel, the books on the shelves, the meticulously maintained furniture. "Mr. Mitchell, I need to ask you some questions about your mental and physical health. I need you to be honest with me. Of course. Do you have any cognitive impairments, memory loss, confusion about dates, places, people? No. Do you manage your own finances? Yes, I balance my checkbook every month. I pay all my bills on time. I file my own taxes. Do you drive? Yes, I have a clean driving record. When was your last medical checkup? 2 months ago. Dr. Harrison, clean bill of health except for slightly elevated cholesterol, which we're managing with diet. Patricia smiled. Mr. Mitchell, you know what I'm going to put in my report, don't you? That I'm perfectly capable of living independently? Exactly. There is no evidence whatsoever of diminished capacity, no grounds for conservatorship. What your son and daughter-in-law attempted was not care, it was coercion. She sat back down and looked at me seriously. I'm going to be frank with you. This case is going to get ugly. When my report goes to the judge, and when the restraining order hearing happens, your son is going to be exposed, publicly. It'll be a matter of public record that Daniel Mitchell attempted to exploit his elderly father. Good, I said. You're sure? Because this will damage your relationship, possibly permanently. Ms. Chen, my son stood in this room and told me I had 2 hours to leave the home I built with my own hands. He threatened to have me declared incompetent. He saw me not as his father, but as an obstacle between him and a free house. The relationship was already damaged, permanently. She nodded slowly. I understand. And for what it's worth, Mr. Mitchell, I think you're doing the right thing. Too many seniors in your situation just give in. They let their children bully them because they're afraid of being alone, or they feel guilty for standing up for themselves. You're protecting yourself. That takes courage. After Patricia left, I felt something shift inside me. Validation, maybe. Confirmation that I wasn't crazy, wasn't overreacting. A professional who'd seen hundreds of these cases had just looked at my situation and said, yes, this was abuse. Yes, you had every right to fight back. I called Marcus to let him know the interview went well. Perfect, he said. Her report will be filed by Wednesday. The restraining order hearing is scheduled for Friday, October 26th. That's your 14-day deadline. Daniel doesn't know about the hearing yet. He will. His attorney will be notified tomorrow. Robert, are you ready for this? You're going to have to face him in court. You're going to have to testify about what he did. I'm ready, I said, and I was. October 23rd, Tuesday. I was in my garage workshop when I heard car doors slam outside, multiple cars. I looked through the window and saw 3 vehicles parked on the street, Daniel's BMW, a U-Haul truck, and a white van with Premier Movers on the side. Oh no. I checked my watch. It was 10 a.m. They were here. A week early. Daniel was trying to move in. I pulled out my phone and called 911. 911, what's your emergency? This is Robert Mitchell at 4782 Elmwood Drive. I have a restraining order against my son, Daniel Mitchell. He's currently on my property with a moving truck, violating the order. Stay inside, Mr. Mitchell. Officers are on the way. I watched through the window as Daniel and Christine got out of the BMW. Christine was directing the movers, pointing at my house like she owned it. Daniel was on his phone, probably calling his lawyer. Then he saw me in the window. Our eyes met, and the look on his face. I'll never forget it. Confusion, anger, disbelief. Like he couldn't comprehend that I was still here, still in my home, still standing in his way. He started walking toward my front door. Daniel, no! Christine called out, but he ignored her. He got about 20 feet from my porch when I opened the door. I didn't step out. That would have been stupid. But I wanted him to hear me. Daniel, you need to leave. Now. You're violating a restraining order. Dad, what the hell is this? He shouted. What restraining order? We had an agreement. We had no agreement. You gave me an ultimatum. I chose differently. You chose... He stopped, his face flushing red. Dad, we have a moving truck here. We've already given notice to our landlord. Where are we supposed to go? That's not my problem, Daniel. Not your... He took another step forward. This is my house, too. I grew up here. And then you moved out 19 years ago. This is my house, my name on the deed, my home, and you're trespassing. I could hear sirens in the distance. Daniel heard them, too. His eyes widened. Dad, you called the cops? On your own son? You violated a court order, Daniel. That's a crime. Christine ran up behind him, grabbed his arm. Daniel, we need to go, now, before they get here. I'm not leaving, he yelled, shaking her off. This is my father's house. He's doing this because of you, Dad, isn't he? That lawyer, Marcus, whatever his name is, he's poisoning you against your own family. Marcus didn't poison me, Daniel. You did that yourself, the moment you told me I had 2 hours to leave. 2 police cars pulled up, lights flashing. 4 officers got out. Who called this in? The first officer asked. I did, I said from my doorway. I'm Robert Mitchell. I have a restraining order against Daniel Mitchell and Christine Mitchell. They're not allowed within 500 feet of my property. The officer turned to Daniel. Sir, is your name Daniel Mitchell? Daniel's face had gone pale. Yes, but... Sir, I need you to step back toward your vehicle. Officer, this is a misunderstanding. This is my father. We're just trying to help him. Sir, step back to your vehicle, now. Christine was already backing away, her expensive heels clicking on my driveway. But Daniel stood there, frozen, like he couldn't believe this was happening. Daniel, I said quietly, you need to go. He looked at me then, and I saw something break in his eyes. How could you do this? I'm your son. And I'm your father, the father you tried to throw out with 2 hours' notice, the father you threatened to declare incompetent, the father whose home you tried to steal. I felt my voice catch, just slightly. You did this, Daniel. Not me. You. The officers escorted Daniel and Christine back to their vehicles. The movers had already taken off. Apparently, they weren't getting paid enough to get involved in a domestic dispute. The U-Haul sat empty in front of my house, a monument to failed plans. One of the officers came to my door. Mr. Mitchell, do you want to press charges for violation of the restraining order? I thought about it, about what Margaret would say, about mercy versus justice. Not this time, I said. Consider it a warning. But if he comes back, yes, I'll press charges. The officer nodded. We're going to document this incident. It'll be added to the case file. If there's a hearing, there is, Friday morning. Then this will be evidence. Smart move, Mr. Mitchell, calling us instead of confronting them yourself. After they left, I sat down in my living room and shook, not from fear, from adrenaline, from the sheer surreal horror of having to call the police on my own son. My phone rang. Marcus. I just heard from the police dispatcher, he said. You okay? I'm fine. They tried to move in early. Of course they did. They probably figured if they were already in the house, it would be harder to remove them. Squatters' rights logic. Idiotic, but common. He paused. Robert, this is good for us. For the hearing. This proves they're willing to violate court orders. The judge is going to crucify them. Marcus, when did I become the kind of person who thinks like this, who sees his son's suffering as good for the case? There was a long silence. Then Marcus said very gently, "You became that person when your son saw you as a problem instead of a parent. This isn't your fault. You're protecting yourself. That's not cruel. That's survival." After we hung up, I went upstairs to Margaret's old craft room. I hadn't changed it much since she died. Her sewing machine was still in the corner. Her yarn collection still filled the closet. Photos of projects she'd made, quilts for Daniel's childhood bed, Halloween costumes, Christmas stockings. There was one photo I kept in a frame on her desk. Daniel, age 6, wearing a Superman cape she'd made him. He'd worn that cape for 2 years straight, insisted on sleeping in it. He'd told everyone who would listen that when he grew up, he was going to be a hero who saved people. When had that dream died? When had he become someone who saw his father as prey instead of family? I picked up the photo and took it downstairs. Put it in a box with other memories I needed to pack away. Not to forget, but because looking at them hurt too much. Sometimes loving someone means accepting that they've become someone you can't recognize, someone you can't save, someone you can only protect yourself from. October 24th, Wednesday. I was at the grocery store when I ran into Helen, my next-door neighbor. She's 62, retired teacher, known her for about 15 years. She'd brought over casseroles after Margaret died. "Robert," she said, looking genuinely happy to see me. Then her expression shifted. "I heard police cars at your house yesterday. Is everything okay?" Word travels fast in suburbs. "It's complicated," I said. She lowered her voice. "I also heard Daniel and Christine talking in their car a few weeks ago. I was in my garden, and they didn't know I was there. Christine was saying something about getting you into a facility so they could take the house." She looked embarrassed. "I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but I couldn't help overhearing." "It's fine, Helen. Actually, would you be willing to testify to what you heard? In court?" Her eyes widened. "Court? Oh, Robert, it's really that serious?" I gave her the abbreviated version, the ultimatum, the restraining order, the hearing on Friday. "Oh my God," she breathed. I knew Christine was bad news, but I never thought Daniel would. He seemed like such a good son. "He was," I said, "or I thought he was. Turns out I was wrong." "Robert, I'll testify. Absolutely. What they tried to do to you? That's not right. That's not family." That afternoon, Marcus called. Patricia Chen filed her report. I just got a copy. "Robert, it's damning. She explicitly states that there's no evidence of diminished capacity, that you're fully capable of independent living, and that Daniel and Christine's actions constitute attempted financial exploitation and elder abuse. The judge is going to see this before the hearing." "Good," I said. "There's more. Daniel's lawyer contacted me. They want to settle. Drop the restraining order, let them move into your house temporarily, and in exchange they'll drop any future conservatorship attempts." I laughed. Actually laughed. They still think they have leverage? They violated the restraining order yesterday. I told them no, obviously, but Robert, they're desperate. Their lease expires in 2 months. They've been telling everyone they're moving into your house. Christine's already planning some kind of boutique business she wants to run from your property. They've built their entire future around something they don't own and can't have. "What happens when the judge rules in my favor?" I asked. "The temporary restraining order becomes permanent. They won't be able to come near you or your property. Daniel will be on record as someone who attempted elder abuse. That's going to follow him. Job applications, background checks, housing applications. It's all public record. And I'm supposed to feel bad about that? I'm not saying you should. I'm saying you need to be prepared for the fallout. Daniel's life is about to get much, much harder, and he's going to blame you. He should blame himself, I said. Should and will are different things. That night, I couldn't sleep again. I kept thinking about the hearing, about sitting in a courtroom and recounting every terrible thing my son had said and done, about Daniel sitting across from me, listening to his father destroy him in front of a judge. Part of me, a small, weak part, wanted to call Marcus and tell him to drop it, to let Daniel off the hook, to be the bigger person, and just forgive everything. But then I remembered Christine's heels clicking on my floor as she evaluated my furniture like it was already hers. I remembered Daniel's cold eyes when he'd given me 2 hours. I remembered the conservatorship threat, the weapon he'd held over my head like a sword. And I remembered something Margaret used to say. Being kind doesn't mean being a doormat, Robert. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is set a boundary and mean it. So I stayed the course. October 25th, Thursday. One day before the hearing, my phone rang at 6 a.m., unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Dad? It was Daniel's voice, thick with emotion, crying maybe. Dad, please, I'm begging you. Don't do this. Don't go through with the hearing. Daniel, I know I messed up. I know I handled everything wrong. But Dad, Christine, and we're going to lose everything. Our lease is up in 60 days. No landlord will rent to us with an elder abuse complaint on our record. We've maxed out our credit cards. Dad, we're going to be homeless. I closed my eyes. This was the moment where I could be merciful, the moment where I could save him, or the moment where I could let him learn the hardest lesson of his life. Daniel, I said slowly, do you remember what you said to me on October 13th? Dad, do you remember? There was a long pause. I said a lot of things I didn't mean. You told me I had 2 hours to leave the house I built. You threatened to have me declared incompetent. Christine called me selfish for not wanting to give up my home for your convenience. You looked at me, your father, and saw nothing but an obstacle. My voice cracked. When did I stop being your dad and start being your problem? You're not. Answer the question, Daniel. When? Silence on the line. Then, very quietly, I don't know. That's not good enough. You want me to drop the restraining order? You want me to let you move into my house? Then you need to tell me the truth. When did you stop loving me and start seeing me as a resource to exploit? Dad, I never stopped loving you. Then why? Why did you do it? And don't blame Christine. You're a grown man. You made the choice to come to my house that day. You made the choice to give me that ultimatum. Why? Another long silence. Then Daniel said something that made my blood run cold. Because I needed the money, and I thought you'd be fine at Sunset Gardens. I thought we could all win. You thought I'd be fine, in a facility I didn't choose, living a life I didn't want, because you needed money. Dad, how much money, Daniel? How much debt are you in? That's not... How much? $340,000, he whispered. Christine's business venture failed. She'd taken out loans, used our credit cards. By the time I found out, it was too late. We're drowning, Dad. We need... I hung up. Just hung up mid-sentence. Because now I understood everything. This wasn't about concern for my well-being. This wasn't about my safety. This was about Christine's failed business and massive debt. I was supposed to be sacrificed to pay for her mistakes, and Daniel had been willing to do it. I called Marcus immediately. I need you to do something. I need you to pull Daniel and Christine's financial records, credit reports, bankruptcy filings, everything you can legally access. What did you find out? Marcus asked. They're $340,000 in debt. Christine's failed business. Daniel just admitted it. Marcus whistled. That changes things. That's motive. That proves this wasn't about your welfare. It was about their desperation. Robert, if we can document this, the judge is going to throw the book at them. Do it, I said. The rest of Thursday was a blur. I prepared my testimony for the hearing, went through my timeline, made sure I had copies of all the documents. The Sunset Gardens paperwork Daniel had left, the texts, the voicemails, everything that would prove what he'd tried to do to me. That evening, I stood in my workshop one last time before the hearing. The chair, Margaret's grandmother's chair, was finished. Perfect joints, new varnish, sturdy enough to last another 100 years. I'd built things my whole life, houses, furniture, a family. I'd always believed that if you built something right, if you put love and care into it, it would last. But some things break, no matter how carefully you build them. Some things break because the people you trust decide that what you've made is worth more dismantled than whole. Tomorrow, I would walk into that courtroom, and I would finish what Daniel had started when he gave me 2 hours to leave. I would take back my life, my home, my dignity, and Daniel would learn what his father had known for 42 years. Actions have consequences, and some consequences last forever. October 26th, Friday morning. I wore my best suit, the navy one Margaret had bought me for our 35th wedding anniversary. She'd said it made me look distinguished, like someone who should be listened to, she'd said with that smile of hers. I needed to be listened to today. Marcus picked me up at 8 a.m. The hearing was scheduled for 9:30 at the county courthouse downtown. You ready? He asked as I got into his car. As ready as I'll ever be. Remember what we talked about. Answer the questions directly. Don't get emotional. Don't let Daniel or Christine's lawyer rattle you. Just tell the truth. That's all I've ever done, I said. The courthouse was an imposing building, all stone and columns, the kind of architecture designed to remind you that justice is serious business. We went through security, took the elevator to the 3rd floor, walked down a hallway that smelled like old wood and anxiety. Courtroom 3B. When we walked in, Daniel and Christine were already there, sitting with their attorney, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and an expensive briefcase. Christine was dressed like she was going to a country club. Daniel wore a suit I'd bought him 3 Christmases ago. Our eyes met across the courtroom. Daniel looked terrible. Dark circles under his eyes. Pale. Defeated. For a moment, just a moment, I felt something that might have been pity. Then I remembered the 2-hour ultimatum, and the feeling passed. All rise, the bailiff called. The Honorable Judge Catherine Morrison presiding. Judge Morrison was in her 60s, gray-haired, with the kind of face that had seen everything twice and wasn't impressed either time. She settled into her bench and looked down at her papers. We're here for the matter of Mitchell versus Mitchell, petition for permanent restraining order based on allegations of elder abuse and financial exploitation. Is the petitioner present? Marcus stood. Yes, Your Honor. Robert Mitchell, represented by Marcus Webb. And the respondents? Daniel's attorney stood. Daniel Mitchell and Christine Mitchell, represented by Jennifer Caldwell, Your Honor. Very well. Mr. Webb, you may begin. Marcus laid out the case methodically. The October 13th ultimatum, the 2-hour deadline. The Sunset Gardens deposit made without my consent, the conservatorship threat, the violation of the temporary restraining order when Daniel showed up with moving trucks. Then he called me to testify. I took the stand, placed my hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth, and I did. I told Judge Morrison everything, every word Daniel had said, every threat, every cold calculation in his eyes when he'd looked at me not as his father, but as an obstacle. Mr. Mitchell, the judge said when I finished, your son claims he was concerned about your welfare, that you're isolated, that you've had memory issues. What do you say to that? Your Honor, I have no memory issues. I manage my own finances. I drive. I maintain my home. Adult. Protective Services investigated and found no evidence of diminished capacity. Daniel's concern wasn't about my welfare. It was about his debt. His debt? Marcus handed me a document. Your Honor, we've obtained financial records showing that the respondents are over $340,000 in debt, primarily due to a failed business venture by Christine Mitchell. They were facing eviction from their rental property. They needed somewhere to live, and they saw the petitioner's home as a solution, not for his benefit, but for theirs. Judge Morrison looked at Daniel's attorney. Ms. Caldwell, is this accurate? Daniel's lawyer stood. Your Honor, my client's financial situation is not relevant to their concern for Mr. Mitchell's well-being. On the contrary, the judge interrupted. It's extremely relevant. It establishes motive. It suggests this wasn't about care, but about self-interest. Your Honor, Ms. Caldwell tried again. Daniel Mitchell was trying to help his father. The 2-hour deadline was perhaps ill-advised, but it came from a place of genuine concern. Ms. Caldwell, Judge Morrison said, and her voice could have cut glass. I have the Adult Protective Services report in front of me. It explicitly states that Robert Mitchell is fully capable of independent living, and that your client's actions constitute attempted financial exploitation. I also have a police report documenting that your clients violated the temporary restraining order by attempting to move into Mr. Mitchell's property without permission. She looked at Daniel. Mr. Mitchell, would you like to address the court? Daniel stood slowly. He looked at me, and I saw tears in his eyes. Real tears. Your Honor, he said, his voice shaking. I love my father. I would never hurt him. We were desperate. Christine's business failed. We were drowning in debt, and I thought if Dad moved to Sunset Gardens, he'd be safe and we'd have a place to live. I thought it could work for everyone. You thought, Judge Morrison said, that you could pressure your 67-year-old father into giving up the home he built so you could solve your financial problems. Yes, but I didn't mean. Mr. Mitchell, intent is less important than impact. Your father felt threatened. He felt coerced. He felt he had to hire an attorney and petition this court for protection from his own son. Do you understand how serious that is? Daniel's face crumbled. Yes, Your Honor. Do you have anything else to say? Daniel looked at me again. Dad, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never should have. I was wrong. About all of it. Please, can't we fix this? And there it was. The moment I'd been both dreading and waiting for. My son, crying in court. asking for forgiveness. I thought about Margaret, about what she would want me to do, about mercy and grace and all those things she'd believed in so strongly. Then I thought about the 2 hours, about the conservatorship threat, about Christine measuring my living room for her furniture. "Daniel," I said quietly, "you can't unring a bell. What you did, what you tried to do, that changed everything. I'm sorry too, but I can't let you in my home. I can't let you in my life. Not after this." He sat down, shoulders shaking. Judge Morrison reviewed her notes. Then she looked up. "Based on the evidence presented, the APS report, the police report, the documented threats and coercion, I'm granting the permanent restraining order. Daniel Mitchell and Christine Mitchell are prohibited from coming within 500 feet of Robert Mitchell or his property. They are prohibited from any contact except through legal counsel. This order is effective immediately and will remain in effect indefinitely." The gavel came down. Bang! It was over. Marcus and I walked out of the courthouse into bright autumn sunshine. The maple trees were brilliant orange and gold. The air smelled like fallen leaves. "You won," Marcus said. "I know. How do you feel?" I thought about it. Empty, relieved, sad, all of it. "That's normal. You just had to take your own son to court. There's no version of this that feels good." "Marcus, what happens to them now?" He sighed. "Reality happens. Their lease expires in 60 days. With the restraining order on their record, finding housing will be nearly impossible. The debt will catch up with them. They'll probably have to declare bankruptcy. Christine's boutique dreams are dead. Daniel's reputation is damaged. They're going to lose everything, Robert, just like you almost did." "Do I feel bad about that?" I asked. "Do you?" I watched a young couple walk past holding hands, laughing about something. Young love. Young and stupid, and convinced that nothing bad could ever happen to them. "No," I said finally. "I don't feel bad. They made their choices. Now they live with them." 2 months later, December 2024. Winter came to Portland. Snow on the rooftops, Christmas lights on every house but Daniel's empty condo downtown. I heard through Helen, who heard through her sister who worked at the bank, that Daniel and Christine had indeed declared bankruptcy. That Christine had moved back to her mother's house in Seattle. That Daniel was living in a studio apartment in a part of town he used to joke about never setting foot in. That they'd separated. Not officially divorced, but separated. The stress had broken them. I spent Thanksgiving alone, made a small turkey, watched football. It was quiet, peaceful, lonely, but it was my choice, my home, my life. On December 15th, Marcus called. "Robert, I have news. It's about your niece, Sarah." Sarah, the architecture student, the one I'd included in my new will. "What about her?" I asked. "She applied for a scholarship, a big one, full ride to finish her degree, plus a stipend for living expenses. She got it. She called me. I'm listed as your attorney on her trust documents to say thank you. She said knowing that her education was taken care of gave her the confidence to apply for bigger opportunities." I felt something warm in my chest. Something that had been cold for 2 months. "That's wonderful," I said. "Robert, she wants to meet you. She says she's never properly thanked you for believing in her. Would you be open to that?" I thought about it, about opening my home to family again, about taking that risk. "Yes," I said. "Tell her yes." Sarah came to visit the week before Christmas. She was tall, bright-eyed, with her mother's smile and my late wife's kindness. She brought a portfolio of her architecture designs, houses for low-income families, just like she'd always dreamed. "Uncle Robert," she said, looking around my living room, "you really built this yourself?" "Every nail," I said. "It's beautiful. The proportions, the way the light comes through the windows. This is what I want to do. I want to build homes that people love, homes that last." We talked for hours about architecture, about Margaret, about dreams and what it takes to build something that matters. She didn't ask about Daniel. She knew what had happened. The whole family did, but she was smart enough not to bring it up. When she left, she hugged me tight. "Thank you," she whispered, "for believing in me, for giving me a chance. I won't waste it." "I know you won't," I said. After she left, I stood in my living room in my house that I'd built and protected and fought for, and I felt something I hadn't felt since October 13th. Hope. 1 year later, October 2025. I was in my workshop, building a new bookshelf for Sarah's first apartment, when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me. "Hello? Dad?" Daniel's voice. Older, tired, different. "Dad, I know I'm not supposed to call. I know about the restraining order, but I needed to tell you something. Daniel, please, just listen. I'm not asking for anything. I just need to say this. I should have hung up, but I didn't." "I'm in therapy," he said. "Have been for 6 months. Christine and I divorced. She's gone, and I've been working on understanding what I did, what I tried to do to you. Daniel, I was so angry at you after the hearing. I blamed you for everything, losing the house, losing Christine, losing my reputation. But my therapist helped me see. You didn't do any of that. I did. Every bit of it. I looked at my own father and saw a bank account. I saw a solution to my problems instead of a person. And that's unforgivable." There was a long pause. "I'm not calling to ask you to drop the restraining order," he continued. "I'm calling to tell you that you were right about all of it. And I'm sorry, truly sorry. Not because I want something from you, but because you deserved better. You deserved a son who loved you more than he loved money. And I failed you." My throat was tight. "Daniel, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect anything. I just wanted you to know that I finally understand what I lost, and it wasn't the house." His voice broke. "It was you." The line went dead. I stood there in my workshop, holding the phone, tears running down my face. Some wounds heal, some don't. Some leave scars that never quite fade but teach you lessons you needed to learn. I thought about calling him back, about starting a conversation that might lead to reconciliation. But I didn't. Not yet. Maybe someday. Maybe when more time had passed. Maybe when I was sure it was real, not just another manipulation. But for now, I had a bookshelf to finish, and a niece who was counting on me, and a house that was mine, all mine, safe and protected. I'd given Daniel 2 hours. He'd given me heartbreak. In the end, we both learned the same lesson. Family isn't just blood. It's trust. It's respect. It's seeing someone not for what they can give you, but for who they are. And sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone you love is let them face the consequences of their choices, even when it breaks your heart, especially when it breaks your heart. I'm 69 now, still in my house, still independent, still building things in my workshop. Sarah graduated last month, top of her class. She's already been hired by a firm that specializes in affordable housing. She calls me every Sunday. Daniel and I haven't spoken since that phone call. The restraining order is still in effect. Maybe it always will be. But I've learned to live with the loss, to accept that some relationships end not with dramatic explosions, but with quiet, permanent distance. My house, the house I built with my own hands, is paid off, safe, mine. No one can take it from me. No one can threaten me. No one can give me 2-hour ultimatums. And on quiet evenings, when I'm sitting in the living room Margaret and I designed together, I think about that day in October 2024. The day my son looked at me and saw an obstacle instead of his father. That day changed me, hardened me, but also freed me. Because I learned that you can love someone and still protect yourself from them. You can remember who they used to be while accepting who they've become. You can grieve the relationship you lost while building new ones that matter. Sometimes people ask me if I regret what I did, if I regret taking Daniel to court, refusing to forgive, keeping the distance. I tell them the truth. I regret that it was necessary, but I don't regret doing it, because in the end, we all deserve to live in homes, physical and emotional, where we feel safe, where we're valued, where we're more than just a problem to be solved or a resource to be exploited. Daniel gave me 2 hours to leave the house I built. I gave him a lifetime to understand what he lost, and in my own way, that was the greatest act of love I could offer. Not mercy that enabled him to hurt me again, but consequences that might, someday, teach him to be better. The house still stands. The maple tree I planted the day Daniel was born still grows. And I'm still here, building, living, free.